So there's a lot of supposed double standards in dating, or I like to call them asymmetric dating standards, as in what men want in women is different from what women want in men. So I just want to go through all of them and just deconstruct them and give reasonings for them. And are these things really double standards, or are they just a matter of supply and demand? Okay, so the column on the left are what women want in men, and the column right is what men want in women. So women, generally speaking, want men with high status or money. Men, on the other hand, don't care about a woman's status or money at all. So some women kind of take this and say how it's not fair, and none of their achievements or accomplishments or their job or anything will do anything to make them more appealing to men. And they're true for the most part. Men don't care about a woman's job or degree or even her money. Again, they might care a little bit, honestly, but again, they certainly don't care as much as women do in reverse. Suppose we take a 30-year-old male doctor. He's very attracted to women because he's a doctor. A 30-year-old female doctor, on the other hand, isn't very appealing to men because, again, men don't care about the fact that she's a doctor, right? The fact that she's a doctor does not make her more attractive to men for the most part. I mean, to be fair, if she's a doctor, that might be worth a little bit of points, but certainly not as significant as, let's say, a male doctor's attention they get from women. However, the fact that men can raise our status through, doing different things, getting better jobs, making more money, also means we inherently have more competition. So when I was in college, I had to compete with varsity athletes, right, who are getting way more attention from women than I was. So that's something women don't have to deal with, right? If you're a girl in college, you don't need to worry about some varsity athlete taking all the guys. Because, again, guys don't really care that a girl's a varsity athlete, right? That does not make her significantly more attractive than girls who are not varsity athletes. But if a guy is a varsity athlete, or he's a millionaire, or he's a doctor, that's just significantly more competition for men. So for us guys, we had to compete with doctors, we had to compete with millionaires, we had to compete with athletes, we had to compete with firefighters, right? Compete with guys that are way more exciting, way more attractive than typical guys, or the average guy. And when women say that's unfair, but you can also make the argument it's unfair to men, because men, simply put, we have more competition to deal with. Because again, if men can scale indefinitely in terms of status, that also means that we have to compete with the same guys that are scaling indefinitely. So imagine a rock star, right? Or professional athlete. Or, like I said, a millionaire. Like, think about how the competition is there. Okay, so the next one is height. So obviously, women like guys who are tall. Men, for the most part, don't particularly care about a woman's height. Okay. The third one, and this is a big one, is women prefer men who are pre-selected. Men prefer women who are single. Now, pre-selected would be, obviously, a guy who's married is a definition of pre-selected. A guy maybe who's married and has a child, that's also pre-selected. Now, some people are going to argue with me that men go after women who are taken, and that's just not true at all. And here's the thing. I know multiple Chad type of guys. So these are guys that get women really easily, and they get a lot of women. And one thing they do, most notably, is before they talk to a girl, one of the first things they do is they take a look to see if she has a ring on. Because, simply put, going after a girl who's single is simply a lot more efficient than going after someone that's already taken. By pre-screening to make sure that you find single women, it makes it easier to meet women. In fact, one of the most critical things about, men's dating advice is telling them how to find women who are single. Because it's not very fun, if you talk to like 10 girls in a night or 10 girls in a day, all of them are taken. So, and men actually do seek for women who are single. Now, in terms of personality, women generally care about personality more than guys. And women prefer traits of men who are dominant, confident, self-assured, assertive, humorous, sociable, rebellious, and exposed. Exposed could also be called broken or damaged, and a lot of women do kind of go for that. Okay, so a lot of people would associate exposed with bad boys. But the truth is, someone who is no longer broken or exposed is still very attractive. Imagine if, James Bond wants to settle down at some point. Would women go for him? Absolutely, they would. So it's not necessarily someone that's like completely, broken, an alcoholic or anything like that. Even if someone was an alcoholic in the past and he's now recovered and he's improved upon that, no longer an alcoholic, that would still be very attractive to women. So it's not as simple as just picking like the most broken guys, the fixer-upper kind of types. Okay, now, in terms of men, personality isn't as important as what women want in men. But men will generally prefer women who are agreeable, thrift, calm, and sheltered. Okay, so next will be sociability. Women want men with social circles or friends. Now, men don't care if a woman has friends or not, and they're totally fine with like women with like totally reclusive type of women. But again, like if a girl meets a guy that has no friends at all, like that's a huge red flag for them, and they're not okay with that. It's interesting how they'll be okay with like someone who's broken, like a drunk alcoholic or anything like that. Hey, the alcoholic has friends, they'll be fine with it. But, if this guy has no friends, they're not. And that just screams the weird flag. It's just not something they're okay with. Okay, so next, really looks. Now, this is one. So men are generally associated with liking looks more, and I do agree with that, but keep in mind, looks are subjective. But women do dislike bald guys, and that's a more objective stance. Okay, so the next one is men prefer younger women, and women will generally overlook a man's age. And here's the thing. So there's a lot of women out there who say like, oh, don't men age, don't let men grow old. And ultimately, it doesn't really about that. The thing is women will overlook a guy's age. So for the most part, as men get older to like 35 or something, they don't have a problem getting women because women don't particularly care about a guy's age. With that being said, if you're 45, you're going to have a hard time meeting, 21-year-old women, but it's certainly not impossible. And a 45-year-old could probably get like a 30-year-old or 29-year-old woman. So like they can still date younger, maybe not as not at the youngest women, probably not, but they can still date women who are younger than them. So this is one thing that favors men, obviously. But it does mean one thing is same as competition up there, because women will overlook a guy's age, men have more competition. Because if you're a guy and you're 21, you're not just competing, guys who are 25 and below. You're competing with guys who are like 40, up to age 40, who are going for the same women you're going for. So like us guys still have more competition, right? And certainly the world is not as simple as I'm describing it, but men inherently have more competition. Okay, next is partner count. Okay, so women do not care about a man's sexual history. Men want a woman with a low partner count. So again, this is a sort of a double standard that people have been talking about, and people joke about and call it like the lock and key, where, a key that opens all the locks is a very good key, and a lock that gets opened by the keys is a really bad lock. But ultimately, joking aside, none of this matters. Ultimately, it's that women don't care about man's sexual history. If anything, women like men who are pre-selected. So they probably prefer a guy with a higher partner count. But regardless, let's suppose they don't. Let's suppose that women just don't care. Then in that regard, if you're a guy, you can sleep around. It doesn't matter because women are not going to mind. Men can sleep around simply on the basis that women don't care about a guy's sexual past. That's that simple. It's not a matter of lock and key or anything like that, or even calling a double standard. It's a matter of demand. Now, if every woman out there says like, oh, I will only go after male virgins, then yes, a man's sexual history would definitely matter. But in this case, they don't, because women like men who are pre-selected. Now, I'm sure there are girls out there who are not okay with guys who've been with way too many girls, but where's that, way too many kind of threshold? Like, how many partners would he have to get? Because there are too many, like 100, 200, like it's infallible. Like how many guys are even at that level? Okay, so next one is game. So men can learn game to improve their chances and their options. Women cannot improve options with game. Okay, so this obviously is an advantage to guys. However, remember one thing is that this also means there's more competition, because if you're a guy, you're not just competing with guys with higher status or guys with more money, you're also competing with guys who have a lot of game. So you could be competing with guys with high status and have a lot of game. That's a lot of competition to deal with. Again, women obviously don't have to deal with it because game isn't a thing for women. That also means women don't need to compete with other women with game. Okay, so here's the thing. Someone would argue if a woman's very witty or whatnot, that can make her more attractive. And I do agree, but I will say that game, even with that level of game, does not scale as much as guys. With guys with a lot of game, that's a huge advantage. With a girl with game, that might offer like a slight advantage. And the same thing as like status, right? If a woman's a doctor, that does give her a little bit of more advantage over women in her same age range. But for the most part, it's not a significant advantage as a guy that's a doctor. Okay, and the last one is men don't really like single moms, where women are in comparison okay with single dads. So again, this kind of goes back to pre-selection. Women like guys who are pre-selected. If a guy is a dad, he is, for the most part, he is pre-selected. Now, again, from a pragmatic standpoint, you can make the argument that if a woman is in a relationship with a single dad, that's a disadvantage. But remember, like a single dad, as a disadvantage as it may be on a pragmatic sense, he is pre-selected, and that is attractive. And this also means that single dads can also date women who don't have children, and they could, have kids and then date a woman without children and maybe have children with her. So having children with another woman. In fact, one of my dad's friends actually did that. He got divorced at 40. He already had a kid, and he remarried some like 20-year-old woman and immediately had 2 more kids. So like again, so men have those options, and that is an advantage. So it's kind of interesting how these are fundamentally asymmetrical. The only thing really is kind of symmetry is looks, where both sides care about looks. Although, again, you can make the argument that guys care about looks more. But it's interesting. And again, let's kind of go now. So women want guys with high status. men don't care about women's status. Women want guys who are tall, men don't care about women's height. Women want guys who are pre-selected, men prefer women who are single. Women want guys who are dominant, confident, assertive, humorous, sociable, rebellious, exposed, or broken. And again, personality isn't particularly important, but if men do care, it will be sheltered, calm, thrift, and agreeable. And women want guys with social circles, and guys don't really care about girls' social circles. Again, looks are somewhat symmetrical. Both sides care about looks to a certain degree. Age is men want younger women. Women will overlook a man's age. Partner count. Women don't care about a man's sexual history. Men want a partner with lower count. And in terms of game, men can learn game. Women can't really learn game. And men dislike single moms, and women are okay with single dads. So this kind of creates asymmetry here. And what's interesting here with the difference here is that guys have a lot more competition. Because again, even in college, I had to compete with varsity athletes. Was that fair? I mean, not really, right? Like, he's a lot more, his size is a lot higher than I was. And in fact, their size is a lot higher than typical non-athlete guys on campus. And again, women don't have to deal with that. Women don't really have to compete with guys who are, ridiculously high status. Because here's about status. Stats keep on going up. Okay, someone's looks, if someone's just pretty, there might, that's just a certain level. But status can climb indefinitely. And, speaking of varsity athletes, you have rock stars. You have kings, princes, emperors. That's a lot of status that the typical guy is not going to go near. And that's a fundamental difference between men and women. Because, the fact that men can gain status also means that men have to compete with guys with higher status. So it's a double-edged sword. It's not as simple as this, guys can gain status, we have the advantage. It's more like, yes, we can gain status, and we're also competing with guys with high status. And fundamentally, that's not really an advantage as much as a double-edged sword. Okay, so I guess the simple question is, who has the advantage? Men or women? And if you're looking at this, the way I see it is, attractive guys have all the advantage. They have, all the benefit from this. They get a lot of demand for them because women go for them, and they also don't have biological clocks, so they can play the field indefinitely. So imagine a guy who's really attractive, who's very high status, and he doesn't settle down until 8 to 40. So he's on the dating market from 18 to 40. That's 22 years of getting tons and tons of women. And for all that 22 years that he's getting women, that's a lot of regular guys who are not getting any women because of him. Yeah, that seems kind of unfair. Now, women and sort of normal guys, I'd say they're about equal. Men have some advantages, women have some other advantages. But the ultimate people who are actually winning in this kind of dating game is guys who are already attractive. Okay, so what's interesting about this is there are churches out there and religions that kind of enforce a no premarital sex rule. Now, this rule would apply to both men and women, of course. And you'll sometimes meet girls with purity rings to kind of say, I'm not going to have sex before I get married. Now, if you go there to meet these church girls, again, these girls are virgins and they're saving themselves. They would, surprisingly speaking, be totally okay with a guy that's not a virgin. And again, this goes back to pre-selection, right? Ultimately, women like guys who are pre-selected, and they don't particularly care about a guy's sexual history. So even in an environment where, there is a no premarital sex rule, where girls are saving themselves, these same girls who are saving themselves would be okay with a guy that's not a virgin, that has a sexual history. So now, these same churches will be telling guys to not have sex before marriage as well, right? I mean, that's what they do that. But it doesn't matter, because ultimately all that matters is the opinions of the girls, right? Because the girls don't care if a guy has a sexual history. Even the church kind of does. Then guys wouldn't need to care either, right? I mean, yeah, sure, the church can tell you not to have sex, as many times as they want. But if the girls that you want to marry, that you want to get with, don't care about your sexual past, then why should you? And that's kind of, guys have that mindset. Ultimately, guys are rewarded for being pre-selected. And there is really no penalty for having sex. Because, again, girls don't care about a guy's sexual history. So, why should guys want to keep their virginity? Because ultimately, there's no advantage that it conveys. Okay, I'm sure someone's going to ask you a simple question is, if girls are not going to care about your sexual history, why should they stay virgins? And that goes back to demand. Men want someone who has a low partner count, or in many cases, no partner counts at all, no sexual history at all. It's a matter of demand, right? So if men want girls who are virgin, then some girls, or a lot of girls, are going to keep their virginity to give themselves that bargaining power, to make themselves attractive and competitive. Inversely, girls don't care about guys' sexual history, so guys are going to do whatever. They're going to have sex, or they're going to try their best to have sex. And in fact, remember, as I said, girls prefer guys who are pre-selected. And I bet if you ask 100 women would they pick a virgin or a guy who has been with 10 sexual partners and a guy who's been with 100 sexual partners? How many of them are going to pick the male virgin? Like, really? Exactly. There's no demand for male virgins. And in fact, if women liked male virgins, then male virgins wouldn't exist. Okay, another big advantage for attractive guys is that a lot of attractive guys want to sleep around and then marry a virgin when they do decide to settle down. And that is an actual strategy that men partake in. And that would be having your cake and eating it too. So, before you call this sort of like misogynist or whatever, how it's unfair, let's just deconstruct how this happens. For a guy to be able to sleep around, you need a supply of women who are sexually active who are willing to sleep with him, right? You need hookup culture for a guy to be able to sleep around. Without hookup culture, guys can't sleep around. And why can a guy that slept around with tons of girls able to land a virgin reasonably easily? Why? Because remember, women don't care if a guy has sexual history. So even if you have a girl that's like, saving herself for marriage, she'd be okay with a guy that's had quite a few sexual partners. Okay, but I do think if you're talking about like Christian girls with like their purity rings and stuff, if a guy's been with a lot of partners, she might have a problem with it. Now remember, none of this is universal, right? Because there's girls out there who don't care about tall guys. There's guys that don't care about age. There's guys that don't care about partner count. There's girls that don't care about a guy's status or money. That's absolutely true. But in terms of numbers, for example, the number of short guys outnumber the girls that like short guys. So, naturally, anybody that's at a disadvantage will be unfavorable kind of dating market due to that. Okay, but what's really interesting is that both genders demand qualities they can lack in themselves. So, for example, a woman doesn't have a job, might still want a guy with a high income. A woman that's short might only want to date tall guys. A girl that's very shy might want a guy that's very confident. A girl that doesn't have any friends might want a guy with a good social circle. An average-looking person might want a partner that's very attractive. A guy that's slept around with a lot of women that might want a girl that's a virgin. An old man that might only want to date younger women. And a single dad that refuses to date single moms. And again, both sides will attempt to use strategies to meet these demands, right? So a short girl might use a dating app and filter all men below a certain height, or a man in his 30s might filter all women above a certain age. So again, my point in all this is that, instead of getting angry, the truth is both sides have asymmetrical dating standards. So it's not just women, it's not just men. So I think everybody needs to kind of stop blaming the opposite sex, and that's what people are doing. I think with the internet, people are always saying, oh, she's short, and therefore she must, it's awful that she doesn't like guys who are short. Or like, oh, he slept around, and it's awful that he wants a virgin. Like, how's that any different? How is any of this different, right? If a guy's not a virgin, and he wants a girl that's a virgin, how's that different than a short girl that wants a tall guy? Like, should only tall women be able to want tall guys? Of course not. Right? If you are angry that people have different standards, and they have supposed double standards, then your best bet is to find someone that doesn't have those standards.